There are people who give up when they feel pain, and there are people who continue not because the pain has ended, but because they have learned to live with it. Most stories talk about winners, few talk about those who persist in silence. Today we're not going to talk only about boxing, nor only about anime. We're going to talk about the human mind, about persistence that is born not from confidence, but from insecurity, not from certainty, but from doubt. In the universe of Hajime no Ippo, there is a character who never seems ready, never seems confident, never seems to fully believe in himself. And even so, he continues. His name is Ippo Makunouchi. Ippo doesn't fight to be the best. He fights so he doesn't disappear. And maybe that is the deepest form of persistence that exists. Ippo isn't born special. He isn't admired. He isn't respected. He isn't desired. From an early age, he learns something dangerous. The world is not kind to the fragile. He is bullied. He is humiliated, ridiculed. And here is an essential point of human psychology. These experiences don't create only pain. They create identity. The mind begins to organize itself around a silent question. What is wrong with me? While many characters build the ego by saying, I am strong, Ippo builds the ego by saying, I am not yet. This difference changes everything. Ippo's persistence is not born from pride, it is born from the gap. He continues because he feels something is missing, and this lack turns into movement. The human being cannot tolerate emptiness for long. When life seems meaningless, the mind collapses. Ippo finds something rare in boxing: structure, training, routine, predictable pain. Psychologically, this is essential. Chosen pain is always more bearable than the random pain of life. Each exhausting training session tells the mind, you are still moving. Each blow received confirms, you are still alive. At this point, persisting is not about winning, it is about existing with coherence. In the ring, Ippo falls. The audience sees only the body on the ground, but the real fall happens inside. Each defeat activates old memories, humiliation, the feeling of inadequacy, the fear of never being enough, but something happens. Ippo gets up. And here there is a deep psychological detail. He does not get up with anger, nor with arrogance. He gets up with acceptance, acceptance of pain, acceptance of limits, acceptance of his own fragility. Most people give up because they cannot bear to see themselves as weak. Ippo continues because he accepts being weak. When everything fails, discipline remains. Ippo does not depend on motivation, he depends on habit. And this completely changes his psychology. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is structural. Training every day, even without desire, creates something invisible. Self-respect. Each silent repetition says, I honor my commitment to myself. Persisting stops being a conscious effort and becomes a way of being. Ippo has no guarantees. He doesn't know if he will be champion. He doesn't know if he will be remembered. And even so, he continues, that makes him deeply human. Most people only act when they see a return. Ippo acts because stopping would be worse. Persisting without a promise of reward is one of the rarest acts of psychological maturity. It is choosing the path not because it leads somewhere, but because it makes sense now. Maybe you don't box, but you wake up tired. You try one more time. You continue even without applause. You also get hit by life. And even so, you go on. Like Ippo, you may not know where this is going, but something inside you says, it's not over yet. And maybe that is enough. Persisting is not about success. It is about inner coherence. It is aligning action and existence. Ippo does not fight to be champion. He fights to become someone who does not run away. And in the process, he finds himself, not as a hero, but as a whole human being. Ippo never gives up because giving up would mean abandoning the only thing he built with his own hands, his own identity. To persist is to say, even weak I stay. Even afraid I move forward. Even without certainty I continue. And maybe that is real strength. There is a romantic idea about persistence, as if continuing were always an act of hope. But the truth is different. Sometimes continuing is not hope, it is psychological necessity. Ippo does not persist because he believes in happy endings. He persists because stopping would mean facing a void greater than pain. The human mind avoids emptiness at any cost. When there is no meaning, suffering becomes unbearable. Boxing gives Ippo something simple but powerful, a reason to get out of bed, train, fight, endure. At this point, persisting is not a virtue, it is a structure for emotional survival. Those who give up make noise, they explain, they justify, they blame. Those who persist remain silent. Ippo doesn't give speeches, he doesn't boast, he doesn't demand recognition, he just continues. And this reveals something profound. True persistence does not need to be seen. It happens far from applause, far from cameras, far from the eyes of others. It is a silent conversation between the individual and their own conscience. Can you still endure? Just one more step. Just one more day. Ippo never places himself above others, even when he wins. This is not weakness, it is psychological maturity. An inflated ego needs to win to exist. A solid identity exists even when it loses. Ippo does not fight to prove superiority. He fights to remain whole. Humility here is not submission. It is inner clarity. It is knowing who you are without needing to crush the other. Behind all extreme persistence, there is a silent fear. What if I stop and never become anything? This fear moves Ippo, not as desperation, but as a constant alert. Each training session is an answer to that fear. Each fight is a direct confrontation with it. Fear does not paralyze, it directs. Persisting is not the absence of fear. It is walking with it. Nothing in Ippo changes suddenly. There is no sudden awakening, no instant illumination. There is repetition, and repetition transforms. The human mind does not change through understanding. It changes through repeated experience, training even when tired, returning even when injured, getting up even when defeated. Little by little, something reorganizes internally, not because the pain ended, but because it was integrated. At some point, the ring stops being just a ring. It becomes a metaphor. Life hits, knocks you down, tests you. And just like in boxing, no one wins every time. The real question was never, will you win, but rather, will you get up? Ippo answers this question every time he continues. Persisting has a cost. The body wears down. The mind grows tired. Loneliness appears. And here is a truth few say. Continuing hurts more than giving up, in the short term. But giving up hurts forever. Ippo accepts the price. Not because he likes it, but because he understands the trade. Identity is not something you find, it is something you build. Each choice to continue is an invisible break. In the end, Ippo is not defined by the title, but by the path. He becomes someone who does not abandon himself. Now, the question is no longer about Ippo, it is about you. Where do you continue even when tired? Where do you insist even when doubting? Where have you not given up yet? Maybe it isn't glory, maybe it isn't success, but it is truth. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the presence of commitment. Ippo shows us that continuing when nothing is guaranteed is one of the deepest acts of human existence. It isn't beautiful. It isn't epic. It is real. Meaning is not in victory, nor in recognition. It is in continuous movement. As long as you continue, there is meaning. When you stop, the void returns. Ippo continues because continuing is meaning itself. At some point in the journey, persisting stops being a conscious choice. It is no longer effort. It is no longer a decision, it is identity. Ippo does not wake up every day thinking, today I will be persistent. He simply gets up, trains, continues, and that is profoundly human, because human beings are not sustained by grand speeches, but by small repeated gestures when no one is watching. The moment the fight stops being about winning. There is a silent, almost invisible moment when the fight stops being about winning. It is when you realize that even if you lose, you no longer lose yourself. Ippo reaches that point. He no longer fights to prove his worth. He fights because that is how he exists in the world. Persisting becomes language, breathing, posture, the peace that arises from acceptance. Something changes when you accept that life is hard and stop demanding that it be different. Ippo does not ask for an easy fight. He does not ask for a fair destiny. He does not ask for guarantees. He simply accepts the path, and paradoxically that is where peace emerges. Not the peace of victory, but the peace of inner coherence. The final silence. In the end, there are no shouts. There is no crowd. There is only someone who keeps walking with their own weight without abandoning it. Maybe that is the purest form of strength that exists. Maybe you will never step into a ring. Maybe you will never be seen. Maybe you will never receive applause. But if you continue, even tired, even confused, even without certainty, then you have already won something invisible and essential. And if this story stayed with you, it is not because of Ippo. It is because in silence, you also continue.